And the first one we've got now is from Yaprak, Tavman and Ning about problem-based learning in economics.
Yeah, hi everyone. I see the attendance has dropped a bit, but it's, I think, understandable. So I'm Yaprak and this is my colleague Ning. So we are going to now present very shortly about our Learning and Teaching Fund Project, which is co-development of a PBL module in economics in partnership with students. So this is a collaborative project. So we had also colleagues from the Department of Politics and Department of Environment and Geography working with us.
Let me give you an overview of the project before Yaprak tells us more about the results we've got so far. So the aim of this project is to introduce PBL to teaching macroeconomics. PBL has been used widely in many disciplines, but not in economics teaching and York. And some students have shown an interest in improving their skills to apply what they have learned to real-world economic problems. And we believe the PBL will be beneficial to them in this regard, and it would improve their employability. So we will use PBL in the seminar teaching of core second year macroeconomic module, starting from September 2024. And luckily, we have received support from the Learning and Funding Fund to work together with students to investigate how to best apply PBL in this module. And we use focus groups to collect thoughts from students about the teaching PBL using, teaching the macroeconomics using PBL, and we will design the module based on the student feedback. So in total, we held 5 focus groups involving 20 students, and all of the students have been exposed to economic study before, and there are 3 focus groups involve students who are studying economic modules provided by the Department of Economics, and one group with students studying the global development, and one group with students studying MSc sustainable business. And for students joining the first 3 focus groups in economics, they were required to attend a taster session of PBL before the focus group. This is to make sure that they are familiar with PBL before the focus group, because PBL hasn't been used in economics teaching at York. And the focus group discussions were organized around 3 aspects of PBL. The students discussed their general thoughts about PBL, focusing on how they could potentially benefit, the challenges they have encountered or would encounter, and any extra support they might need. They also discussed their preferences and concerns about the assessment. And to help us better design the group work, we also asked them to discuss their experience with group work, how they think the PBL should be, or the group work should be designed, and their concerns.
So we haven't analyzed our responses systematically yet, but we did make some notes during the focus group. So we wanted to share the notes such as preliminary results with you. So there were a few things that we have seen students mentioning in many different focus groups. So the first one of these was that students seem to agree that group work through PBL is conducive to learning. They were also agreeing on having the opportunity to engage in some team building or bonding activities before group work starts. They agreed that this would enhance the learning environment. They also agreed that problem design is crucial in PBL. So if the problem is not challenging enough, then this would mean they might not be interested. But then if it is too challenging, they would be overwhelmed. So there needs to be a balance between these two in terms of problem design. Then we have realized that all of the students were worried about free riding in group work, and they were agreeing that this can create some stress. So this is something for us to definitely keep in mind as well. And they did also mention in this setting, the tutor role is very important. They agreed that that was very important in creating an inclusive learning environment. And finally, they all agreed that having students from different programs can enhance the PBL learning. However, there seem to be some areas that they didn't clearly agree on. So we do talk a lot about optionality, right, in module design, but actually it seemed like students do not all agree on the benefit of having the option to choose topics. For example, some of them said they would rather be given topics. They were also not sure about the weight of the different assessments that they have in PBL that should be counted in their overall mark. There was again no agreement on whether participation should be marked or not. And finally, even though the students said if there's a too large group, that can make it more difficult for them to participate, and if there's a small group, it might not help with the discussion going, they couldn't still agree on a size that they considered ideal. So just to conclude, our next steps include transcribing all the responses we had from the focus groups and then using them to complete our content analysis. Then using all these responses, the results, we will start designing the module in September this year because it will be taught from September 2024. And then finally, if we can get even more funding, we would like to employ some more students who are GTAs as research students to develop training and guidance material for this module. Thank you.
So next we have Tamsyn Kiss and Lucy Orange from the Environment and Geography Department. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Hi everyone, we are Tamsyn Kiss and Lucy Orange, and we're going to share with you today how we've revamped the GTA recruitment system in Environment and Geography.
So, starting off, we came together to have a look at the problems that we were facing with the recruitment, and there were many, as you can see. A lot of these revolved around the communication. So we were finding that GTAs felt like they didn't have enough information about the work that they were going to be undertaking, provided from the teaching staff. Teaching staff then felt like they didn't get the standard of work from our GCAs, which was obviously a problem that we wanted to solve. As admin staff, I was kind of in the middle of this, trying to resolve it, and as such, and with the implication of GCA contracts, I had to start making my deadlines very early so that we made sure that we got all the information and all of the chasing that came with this process happened, and we got everything done in time, which obviously wasn't great for the GCAs or teaching staff because they didn't want to commit to the work that early in the year. We also had a problem of GCAs submitting CVs, which is how we did the recruitment process previously, and this didn't provide all the information that teaching staff needed to assign them to the right modules. So, we came together and Tamsyn came up with the fantastic idea of a GCA briefing document. This would be a document that holds all the information that academics need to provide to get GCA work, that I need as an administrator to then create the bookings and process the GCA recruitment, and that GCAs need to be able to apply for all of the modules. So it has, you can't see on there, but it has a section for experience and skills required for these modules. So we decided that GCAs would submit a 250-word anonymous application based on these briefing documents. We decided it would be anonymous so that it would avoid any unconscious bias, conscious bias or favoritism that we were seeing previously, and then we would carry on the recruitment process as normal.
So what we did was we got everyone into the same room and we asked them what they thought. So this included getting in the GTAs, so our PGR reps, we got in the PSS staff, the technicians, and anyone else who heard that it was going on and wanted to be in there. What we then had was perhaps the most cathartic meeting ever, where we took all of the feedback and we divided it into our job and not our job. But obviously for this, it's beyond the scope of this project. And what we thought that we could do based on the feedback was that the GTAs felt 250 words, which was a number we pulled out of the air, was just too long to do for each thing that they wanted to apply for. Teaching staff did have concerns about our concept of anonymity, and that is still something that we're trying to work through. And the teaching staff thought that having to do this a year in advance was just too early. There was a lot going on with modularisation, so they asked for a semester-by-semester approach, which we could accommodate. In the beyond the scope of this project column, there is wider conversations that need to be had about what is the role of the GTA in environment and geography. Is it on-the-job training, Or are these GTAs providing a service that they're being paid for? In that instance, whose job is it to provide that training and support to our GTAs? And there was a conversation that we had, which took up quite a lot of time. If the contract requirements from HR are for working over 59 hours for a GTA, should we be limiting those hours? We have a lot of thoughts about that, but we're not going to share that one.
We haven't got enough time. So we revised, we took this feedback and we came back together and we revised what we'd come up with. So we tweaked the briefing document a little bit and we distributed this to academics, which actually went down really well. We also made the most changes to the application process for our GTAs. So they had links to all of the briefing documents so they could see exactly what was required to apply, but also the work that they would be carrying out. We asked them to provide a broad statement of their skills and expertise and experience, which was then supported by individual statements relative to the modules that they were applying for, which would detail any experience or skills that were more relative to that specific module. That would then help our teaching staff to see that as well. And we have kind of gone through this process, and we're now at the point where our academics are reviewing these applications. We have had more applications this year, which is fantastic news. We've had really positive feedback, and I love to say that I have not had to do any chasing, touch wood, yet.
Which is always amazing. So beyond not having any chasing, which I think comes into point number 4, we hope that what we've shown is the benefits of collaborating across both the different staffing groups, so academic, technicians, PSS teams, and with our GTAs and our PhD students. We hope that we've created a system that feels transparent and it feels open. And hopefully that's meant that we've had this higher engagement with GTA applications. We've created that minimum expectation for everyone, so people at least know what they're going in at the ground level, what they're going to be expected to do. Hopefully we've reduced PSS workload and stress about this issue. I can't guarantee anything else. But we also have a system that we're hoping we can review as we go on and ensure that it works for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if we could have our next group of presenters, please. We've got Amanda Naylor, Adam Frankland, Katie Smith, and Nick Glover.
So developing pedagogical partnerships working with undergraduate finalists. So I suppose I'll say a little bit about where it started. I think it was me going for free croissants to the education department's teaching and scholarship day. I can't remember where it was, got free croissants, and I think badgered various people about the Learning and Teaching Fund and working in partnership. So I suppose as well as this being a partnership between Amanda and the students on her module, and students within the class as well, I suppose it's a partnership between us, the Inclusive Learning team, Dr. Katie Smith, me, Amanda, and Adam Frankland, who is he in?
Yeah, he's at the top. Yeah.
Oh, he's hiding at the back. Yeah, he's our student intern as well. So that's a bit of context. Should we go on to very quickly. Do you want to say what your module is? That feels like me butchering what your module is.
Sure.
The
Okay.
context.
So we worked together on my stage 3 BA English and Education and BA Education model, Dress for Success, bringing text alive in the classroom. And the way we've done that is we're co-creating content, evaluative approaches, and teaching and learning approaches, because the work that we have been doing in co-creation ties in very much with the actual content of the module, where I'm asking students to create teaching practices and teaching schemes and analysis of texts. So our conceptual framework is whole class co-creation as the course unfolds, and we were hoping that we'd have a deeper understanding for the students of the relationship between planning, pedagogy and teaching, which could actually feed into the final assessment task for the module.
So these are our 2 research questions. The main one which we were hoping to answer was, what can undergraduate finalists learn from participating in the co-creation of content, evaluative approaches and teaching and learning approaches? And how can this also contribute to their understanding of inclusive teaching and learning, which is really important? And from a staff perspective, myself and Nick were involved in co-constructing an interview and then interviewing Amanda. So what can staff learn from participating in a project with undergraduate finalists? using co-creation of content, evaluative approaches and teaching and learning approaches, and how might this contribute to staff ongoing professional development in relation to their own inclusive learning and teaching practice. So as I briefly mentioned, we had, oh no, gone the wrong way. We had a range of different methodology in the process. So we started off with the actual module. So week 3 to 9, this involved teaching observations. So each session also involved free journaling from the students, so they could contribute kind of like what they'd observed and what their thoughts were about the modules and what their observations were. And this is really good for us to kind of have as something to refer to in the research process as well. In week 10, this all built up to a co-assessment, so a formative presentation in groups, which obviously the formative aspect of it took the pressure off a little bit, so it wasn't assessed, but actually all of the students got really involved in it. Actually, looping background, Adam, who is our student intern, was actually one of the students who took part in this process, so enjoyed and was invested in the process so much that he wanted to be part of the research team, which is really, really positive, I think. And then following the formative presentation in weeks 11 to 13, there was co-creation of the fake news content, which Amanda actually foresaw as being very popular and was indeed. And then obviously, as I mentioned, we've got a paid pedagogical partner who is Adam in the audience, who was actually involved on the module as one of the student partners, but then has also now been involved in the research team. So he has been interviewing and conducting focus groups and is still currently doing that now with those participants, the student participants that took part, and is transcribing all of our data from Amanda and from those students, and we'll be working together to co-construct a lit review, and hopefully that will involve some future outputs related to the work, which will be positive for us as a team, but also for Adam, because we're very positive about getting everyone having an equal contribution there. Does anyone else have anything to add to this slide?
No,
I think we're keeping well for time, actually.
I suppose one last thing, just a big shout out for in-class co-creation, where the inclusive learning team, and obviously enrichment projects, co-creation of the curriculum is so important, but I think it's particularly interesting about working with students as the course is unfolding. It's inclusive by design, literally, because it's including every student within that class. So it's really interesting.
And also, I think, as being a member of staff involved in it, it's really made me consider my relationship with the students, because what I might think as being a kind of democrat in the classroom and being open and listening and sharing, I think when you're co-creating, you reflect much more on your own pedagogical approaches, and I found that particularly, for example, things like the observations of my teaching by one's own students is quite, it causes you to reflect.
And of course, as an ex-member of the education department, it's been nice to go back and collaborate and look forward to many more projects in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, and now it's time for our last presentation of the afternoon from one of my colleagues from the IPC, Alex Dawson.
It's a very long, dramatic entrance. Thanks, Dan. Okay, can everyone hear me? Is that volume all right? Brilliant, thanks. Okay, thanks for coming. As Dan said then, I work in the IPC, and at the minute I'm working on an online pre-sessional course that is aiming to filter students in for mostly postgraduate study in the autumn. Okay, so it's online, and most of our Chinese students are based in China, but it's an international program, and what I wanted to do really is just kind of show you some of the observations that we've had, some of the feedback that we've had, some of the spokesperson meetings feedback and some positives, and some things that we found have really helped our students and that they've really benefited from. Okay, so I'm going to focus mainly on the transition into the program, and I want to focus on these two questions: what are our students like, and what do our students like? Okay, so these are the two things that I want to focus on mainly. Okay, so in terms of issues, there are lots of similarities between these students and universal issues that we all have issues with. Time management at the beginning, lots of information, so much to deal with the BLE as well. But in particular, there's quite a lot of assessment anxiety as well. Okay, coming from a different educational culture, it could be how are we assessed, it could be, okay, what am I supposed to do now with the title and the reading list? So there's lots of explicit connections that we need to make, and also explicit connections and support in terms of how to organise teamwork. Okay, so teamwork and goals and goal setting and things like that. Okay, so there are some things that we've put in place to help support the students, but for example, office hours every day that haven't really been taken up. We've had some missed opportunities there, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And I've put a gap here because it's a positive, is that our students are really, really looking forward to cultural integration, arriving in York, because they're still overseas at the moment, arriving in York, being part of the city, part of the university, so they're really excited about that. So moving then on to some of the things that have helped some of the success stories, and I'm hoping that these could be a few takeaway bites for anybody that is teaching students that might be experiencing the same things. And the first couple of bullet points I have is mainly about structuring work. Very clear structure that we have for schemes of work, breaking things down, even down to things like peer discussion groups. So we have academic reading circles where students are given particular roles that they have to perform. And after a couple of weeks, things have become a lot more independent. Students have become more independent. And what we've noticed is that at the start for the transition period, I call it instruction and structure, where students are getting into the flow and they've got lots of support and lots of scaffolding. Okay, so this is something that has been helping them a lot and helping them become a lot more independent. In particular as well, I mentioned the office hours not having a great take-up before. So what we've done is kind of make it a bit more sort of bespoke, almost like a tutorial almost, where we have to select almost and invite students to come and have a chat. And that's worked quite well as well. So we've able to kind of support students through the office hours, but it does need specific invitations sometimes. And the final section that I want to talk about is some of the platforms that have been really successful as well. So a lot of our students then, when they're involved in a group speaking activity, may sometimes feel a bit of anxiety sometimes. So what we found is things like Padlets have been fantastic, and also discussion boards on Ultra as well have been very popular. We've had some really good creative input from students, whether it's uploading recordings of group discussions, whether it's uploading things like summaries and worksheets and stuff like that. The creativity has been really impressive. And also weekly reflections on study tasks as well. So we have about 100, 150 words each week where students can write up a reflection on the week. It could be, for example, how they've engaged with feedback, how they've overcome a challenge of the week connected with something that they've done. And it's kind of like one-to-one with their tutor, and they've uploaded that to their Padlet, and that's gone really, really well. And we've had some really good, insightful comments, and it's really helped us understand a lot of where students as individuals want to go and how they want to sort of develop their practice. Okay, so I recommend the final three: Padlets, discussion boards, and weekly reflections. So takeaway messages then in terms of the first two questions that I asked. So I think the main thing I would think about is structuring activities right at the start for students to help scaffold. Okay, even if it's things like teamwork and things like that, it's really useful to kind of give them roles and help them to kind of gain confidence and skills that way. And also a variety of creative platforms as well, used in particular ways that will allow students to contribute and be creative as well. That's been really successful for us. And that's all. Thank you very much.